Recessions aren't the problem. It's the emotions that the word triggers. Recessions don't usually do the most damage while they're happening. The real damage often comes from the decisions people make because they're happening. And there's a big difference. Most people think that recessions hurt retirement because markets fall, but in many cases, the deeper damage often comes later, when fear, uncertainty, and loss of control start making decisions the plan was supposed to handle. Because recessions are not just financial events, they are behavioral events. The word itself triggers panic, uncertainty, and worry. It implies instability. Nobody knows how long one will last, how long it will affect them personally, or how they will get through it. And for anyone who previously has made poor investment decisions, the past is never far. I'm Eric Kearney with Retirement Wealth Advisors, and I want to talk today about what recessions really expose in retirement and why the most expensive part of a downturn is often not the market itself, but the decisions people make while living through it. While retirement plans do not break in one dramatic moment, many retirees still believe that one event or bad decision will bring down their entire retirement. Usually not so. They actually break slowly. A decision to sell after a sharp decline, a decision to sit in cash because there was never a real system in place for what to do when the markets turned, a decision to take more risk trying to make back lost ground, a decision to delay planning because uncertainty makes everything feel harder. And on their own, each one of these decisions may seem reasonable in the moment, but over time, they can quietly reshape the entire retirement. Only after a recession hits do some people think about de-risking the portfolio and reducing threats, even though they were advised earlier to do so. For decades, so many Wall Street tools and methodologies assume that investors behave rationally. The rational man, like the unicorn, does not exist. For so long, traditional finance was based on how people and investors should behave. But behavioral finance is about how people actually behave. A recession is not just an economic event. It's actually a confidence event. When people feel financially secure, they behave one way. They spend, they invest. They make long-term investment decisions. They tolerate short-term volatility because the future still feels intact. But when confidence deteriorates, behavior changes quickly. They pull back, they postpone, they react. Fear leads to hesitation. Hesitation slows activity, and slower activity creates more fear. And for some nearing retirement, that cycle can feel especially intense because you're no longer depending on a paycheck. Market volatility stops feeling like something you can simply write out forever. It starts to feel personal. It starts to feel like a threat to income, independence, and stability. That is a very different emotional experience than investing in your 30s and your 40s. In our early earnings years, we had a longer time horizon. We could accept risk. We could handle volatility. We saw pullbacks as opportunities. Now, any significant negative change in the market can feel like the actual demise of the entire retirement. One of the biggest financial mistakes people make is assuming that the mindset that helped them build wealth is the same mindset they will need to protect it. It is not. Accumulation and decumulation are two completely different financial events. Now, timing matters more, liquidity matters more, taxes matter more, healthcare matters more, withdrawal strategies matter more. Creating sustainability through tumultuous times becomes reality. What's even worse is that over 67% of Americans between the ages of 57 and 70 don't even have a written formal financial plan. That means that too many people are flying blind, making irrational and situational decisions that provide instant relief, but often come with unforeseen long-term consequences. Emotional mistakes become more expensive because there's less time to recover from them. That is why the first several years of retirement matter so much, and so much financial planning is crucial. A recession in early retirement, especially if it's paired with weak reserves, poor withdrawal planning, or emotional-driven decisions, can permanently reduce flexibility later on. This is where generic advice starts to become very dangerous, because retirement planning is not just based on average returns. It's based on reliability, longevity, and sustainability. How reliable is the income plan? How much flexibility exists when conditions change? How exposed is the household to bad timing? How much stress can the plan absorb before the retiree starts to make reactive decisions? Those are retirement questions, and they are very different from the questions that dominate the wealth-building years. Remember this: bull markets can hide weaknesses quite easily. This is one of the least comforting truths in investing. Strong markets can make weak plans look better than they really are. When markets are rising, bad habits often get rewarded. Too much risk can look smart. Poor diversification can look harmless. Speculation can feel justified. And overconcentration can feel efficient. Overconfidence can still look like skill. But a bull market does not prove that a retirement plan is strong. It may simply mean that the environment around that has been forgiving. And that distinction matters, because when the environment changes, weak spots show up very quickly. A recession reveals there's not enough liquidity to pay bills, enough flexibility in spending, enough diversification, enough tax flexibility, enough emotional discipline to stay with the plan when uncertainty rises. In other words, recessions reveal whether a plan was only built for growth or whether it was built for uncertainty. A financial plan is written for all kinds of unknowns, and a future full of unknowns is everyone's reality. Retirement is not lived in perfect conditions. It's lived in the real world, a world with inflation, health events, tax changes, unexpected expenses, market declines, and the real possibility of living much longer than expected. That is why affluent investors build resiliency into their tax plan, their income plan, and their financial plan. Their portfolio is professionally managed, monitored, and maintained. They proactively adjust before they are forced to react. They stay calm, review their options, de-risk appropriately, and consistently lower their volatility. All of this protects the lifestyle that they have become accustomed to. This is where behavioral finance becomes incredibly important. Traditional finance often assumes that people make rational decisions. Real life does not work that way. That is why people can live through the exact same recession and still come out in very different positions. One sells off after the market has already fallen just to stop the emotional pain. Another stays in cash far longer than planned, not because they have a thoughtful defensive strategy, but because they never built the income structure, liquidity, or decision-making framework needed to stay invested through uncertainty. Another takes on too much risk, trying to recover quickly. And another stays grounded because the plan already accounted for uncertainty before it ever showed up. That is the difference, not prediction, preparation. You cannot build a retirement that eliminates uncertainty, but you can build one that reduces the odds of fear turning into permanent mistakes. Resilient retirees do not think about recessions as something they need to predict perfectly. They need to think about them as something they need to be prepared to live through. That is a very different mindset. They understand that financial confidence rarely comes from chasing the highest possible return. It comes from knowing that the plan can absorb stress without forcing bad decisions. That usually means thinking beyond investments alone. It means paying serious attention to cash flow, liquidity, withdrawal structure, tax flexibility, income diversification, and healthcare costs, and how decisions get made when emotions are high. In other words, a resilient retiree focuses on financial infrastructure, not just portfolio performance, because the real question is not, how do I build the highest return retirement plan possible? The better question is, how do I build a plan that still works when life becomes unpredictable? That's a much higher standard. And today it matters more now than ever, because modern retirement is more complex than it used to be. People are living longer, inflation lingers, healthcare is much more expensive, insurance costs are rising, taxes matter more, and market volatility now interacts with every single part of the plan. And that is why the old retirement playbook is no longer enough by itself. The next recession will expose something important, whether you truly have a retirement plan or merely have a collection of investments that performed well during better times. These are not the same thing. So do not wait for the market to force the conversation. Review your income strategy, your cash reserves, your tax exposure, and the amount of risk your lifestyle is quietly depending on. Make the difficult decisions while you're calm, because decisions made during panic are usually the most expensive ones. For more information, click below to learn more, and thank you so much for watching.